All right, so good morning, everybody. I'm Stephen Gordon. I'm founding chairman and CEO of Genesis Bank. Thank you for joining us. And I've been looking forward to this event with Janet Neman and our discussion for many, many months now. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Right? And Janet and I talked about this right after we did, I think, our first event.
Yes.
And Janet and I got on the phone immediately, and she said, "I want to do that too." And knowing Janet, I got really thrilled to do this and to bring Janet's story to this community. And I think there's a lot to be learned and inspired through Janet's story and experiences. And I take it to heart. Yeah, because when I think about my story and my upbringing in New York and how I had to fight to get my first job, and I mean like really fight to get it, I really admire Janet and her upbringing in this business and what it took to get here. So I want to welcome all of you today for our third event in the When Genesis Talks Challenger series, and we're very excited to have you all here. As a minority depository institution, of which there's only 143 of us in the US out of roughly 5,000 banks. And of the 143 of us, there are actually only 2 of us that are diverse multiracial MDIs or minority depository institutions. So we're committed to showcasing our diverse business leaders and strengthening the communities in which they reside here in Southern California. We do this through Genesis Bank Institute for Entrepreneurship. We built the Institute to accelerate and advise, connect and support, and to nourish and grow our local minority-owned and family-owned businesses here in the markets we serve. The Institute's mission is to democratize business and financial literacy education and break down the barriers and impediments that have inhibited the socioeconomic, technological, educational, and financial advancement of our minority business communities and the diverse entrepreneurs behind those businesses. Together, Genesis Bank, the Institute, and our foundation, which is the Genesis for Good Foundation, consider these experiential storytelling events to be an invaluable way that we can support diverse businesses in our community and bring us all together. We believe that sharing diverse narratives through both success and failure has proven to be a powerful tool to connect, relate, teach, and inspire. Some of you may have joined us for our other Challenger Series events. I know that Samir, you're here somewhere. Thank you for joining us from Orange County. I'm sorry you sat on the freeway as well. And we believe that sharing these narratives actually end up relating, teaching, and inspiring and connecting all of us in our communities. If you joined us for our first Challenger Series Fireside Chat, that was with Raul Porto of Porto's Bakery this past February. And our most recent event this past April featured our Challenger guest, Dean Ian Williamson from the Palmerage School of Business at UCI. Today we're looking forward to spending time with our next Challenger Series guest, an individual who has an exemplary proven track record of breaking barriers and challenging the status quo in commercial real estate. Janet Neman, EVP Partner at Kidder Mathews. Thank you, Janet. So before we jump into our program, I'd like to thank the sponsors of today's event. First up, I'd like to welcome Jim Cruz. Jim, where are you? Jim, president of Kidder Mathews for Greater Los Angeles and the platinum sponsor of today's event. Jim is very well known, 35-year commercial real estate lender in LA. Not 35 years old, but 35 years.
Not a lender either. We don't have any money.
Oh. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to say exactly how Kidder Mathews got involved here. I'm the regional president in Greater Los Angeles for Kidder, and this is how the hierarchy works. Janet walked into my office and said, "Hey, you're going to sponsor for Genesis Bank. This is a lot of great people, and we're going to do this." I said, "I guess we're going to do this." So here I am. But anyway, Janet, you're a phenomenal representative of Kidder. One of the big values of a group meeting like this is the takeaways. And what I'd like to offer up to every one of you is if there's any market information, any intel that you need, second and third level kinds of things, call me, call Janet, we'll get it to you. We want to be here to be part of what you do business-wise. And Steve, thanks for letting us participate, and we feel it's an honor.
Thank you. Right. Both of our gold sponsors are good friends of Genesis Bank. Welcome to Jonathan Wintner. Jonathan, are you here yet? Yoni? No? So he's president and CEO of Windstar Properties, and to Joseph Shabani, co-founder and principal of Optimist Properties. Joseph, thank you always. Finally, thank you to our silver sponsors, Seligman Western Enterprises and Capital Trust Escrow. We appreciate your support for today's event and of Janet. Thank you. So, as we get into this conversation, some of you may be wondering why this series is called the Challenger Series and why the formidable Janet Neman sits up here as our featured Challenger guest. I don't think there should be any question as to why Janet is up here. Right? But we invited Janet to be a part of this event for several reasons. When we say that Janet Neman is a legitimate challenger in the commercial real estate space, we genuinely mean it. Here are a few statistics to give you some insight into the barriers that Janet has had to overcome or challenge to arrive at her success today. According to the 2020 Crew Network benchmark study on gender and diversity in commercial real estate, in the US, women make up just 36.9% of commercial real estate professionals. As of this study occurring in 2020, women earn 9% less in salary and 55% less in commission and bonuses in the United States. That's just wrong.
Not
right?
Janet, by the way.
No, when I look at these numbers, Janet, has overwhelmed and outperformed any of these numbers, and there's a reason for it, and we're going to get into that story. But if you look at it statistically across our markets, there's an imbalance and a lack of access, and that's in process, I believe, of being corrected, but it's a long fight. Across the real estate categories of office, industrial, manufacturing, retail, multifamily, hotel, mixed use, healthcare, and the public sector, the average compensation for women received ranges anywhere from 25 to 37.5% less than their male counterparts, with industrial, manufacturing, and healthcare showing the largest gaps in compensation compared to men. In fact, and we've shared some stories, Janet mentioned a story to me just the other day that 25 years ago, when arriving at the Jonathan Club, you can imagine, the Jonathan Club for a meeting, she was asked to change from her pantsuit and wear a skirt and enter through a different doorway. Janet should never enter through a different doorway. Instead, people should follow Janet into the building. But despite these barriers, Janet fought her way to the top and has achieved incredible success. A little background on Janet. Janet's career spans over 35 years of successful business experience in commercial real estate, with sales exceeding $2.5 billion. She specializes in the analysis, marketing, and sale of commercial investment properties, representing both buyers and sellers in multifamily, land, office, retail, and industrial properties. Janet also has significant expertise in the sale of portfolios, and she has consummated several sizable buyer representation transactions, helping her clients acquire some of the largest portfolios in the market. Her vast experience, integrity, and dedication to her clients have led her to create long-term investor relationships. Janet remains a leading multifamily professional and is often quoted as a market expert by the Los Angeles Times and Real Estate Forum. Prior to becoming executive vice president and shareholder with Kidder Mathews, Janet was senior managing director at the Charles Dunn Company for nearly 25 years. Throughout the course of her career, she has been consistently recognized for her achievements and her ability to set and exceed performance standards within the commercial real estate industry. So, Janet,
wow. You
did all that. It's been a busy 35 years.
It's been busy.
All right, so let's dive in. So what is your genesis? Who are you? How did you become you? Describe your personal journey and go back to early, and don't start with, like my first deal. Go back to how you became you.
It's interesting when Stephen said, we don't want to talk about interest rates and cap rates and real estate market overview. I said, well, what do you want to talk about? He said, to be wrong. I'm going to try. I had a long, long journey. I was born in Iran. I moved here 9 years old before the revolution in Iran. So I had a little head start. If I want to define myself, I could define myself in one word. I'm a survivor. I think that's important in every woman's life. In order to succeed, you always have to have a role model. And I want to tell you all, my role model, and still today, was my father. As I was growing up, my father used to come and say to me, Janet, you could do what a man can do, but even better. And that stuck in my head. There was no limits, no boundaries of what I wanted to do with my life. So we escaped Iran, or not escaped, we moved to here before the revolution, because my father believed in freedom and opportunities. And I think as a woman, because of my father and the role model that he was to me, I think I achieved that. So I'm very, very lucky.
Yeah, that's that touches me in that I have two daughters, 26 and 29 years old, and they both work very hard at what they do, and I always raise them to never recognize gender as being any different between a male and a female in terms of their career opportunities.
Right.
And it sounds like your father drove you that same way.
Absolutely.
Have you? Did you ignore that in front of you and always go for it? Did it hold you back in any way? Did it inspire you?
Which part? Gender?
Yeah.
I no longer today, view gender as a barrier for me. But it wasn't used to be this way 35 years ago when I started this business. I took these barriers and these challenges as an opportunity to succeed. Every closed door, I had to open it. It became a challenge to me. So I wasn't going to sit back and because of being a woman to stop me. In fact, I'm going to tell you a story. I went to a proposal, and he was 80 years old at that time, but I'm not going to name any names. Walked into this meeting, and very intimidating. I could swear to you it was like a 25, 30 feet conference table. He sat at the end smoking cigars in a building with a fan inside, and you had to sit on the other side. As I walk in, I say hello with my proposal in my hand. He said to me, I don't trust anybody with an I country. That starts with an I country. So what? He goes, Iranian, Iraqis, Israelis, anything that starts with an I. And I sat down, I said, well, I guess this meeting is over. He goes, what do you mean? I said, I'm an Iranian Jew, so I have two eyes against me. The third one is a strike, so I just leave. As I packed my stuff to leave, he said, wait, nobody has ever stood up to me this way. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm from the I country, the worst one, Iran, and, I'm a Jew. So he said, you know what, I appreciate that from you, but I left. I got a call from his assistant, and he goes, come back, he wants to meet you only because you know how to stand up to people, and that will protect his investments coming in the future. And since then, it's been 25 years I've worked with the same family. Honestly, so I don't say no. No is not in my vocabulary. I could say I know, but I'm not going to say no.
So these challenges continued.
These challenges.
They evolved over time.
They evolved over time, yes. They
and
did.
Impacted your career how?
With every obstacle, with every barrier that I face in my career, I strategize. I just don't sit and say, well, this is the one way I have to go. I look at different strategies. And I just don't let them hold me back. This is not what I'm made of. This is, you have to be in a male-dominating industry, which I got to tell you, when I started, it was just a handful of women who did this. Another perfect example is I had a proposal on a very, very huge deal. I did my homework. the day that I had the proposal, I noticed, I went to his office beforehand, before the meeting. I noticed there was deer heads hanging. He was a hunter. This guy believed in hunting. I said, there's no way he will give me a listing to a woman. So I called one of my men colleagues at the office. I said, run here, pretend I work for you. I give you the proposal and go with it. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. He only spoke to him. He had no idea, so he swinged it, looking at the proposal and taking side notes. I sat quiet and I got the listing. So you have to strategize in life. You have to know if this path is not going to work, then what's the next one?
What's the one piece of advice you give someone to not do, based on your experience?
Don't take it personal. It's just business. Just be better. Be comfortable with challenges. In fact, if I know there's an obstacle, Angelica is part of my team. She's one of the reasons I'm successful. She's brilliant. I email her 3:00 in the morning. I wake up and say, oh my God, this is what I have to do and this is not what I have to do. So when I hired her, I said, please turn off your phone because you are going to get texts and emails from me. But, it's true. I still do.
I'm laughing because I'm seeing some of my partners around the room here, and I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I shoot out emails at 12 at night, 2 in the morning, and I don't expect a response.
Right.
And but I do the tag you're it concept, meaning whatever it was that was racing through my head, it's out there now, and it's now somebody else's responsibility, and they're going to run with it. Now I might be able to sleep peacefully, and that's the way their day starts. It's like, oh, Stephen was up at 2 in the morning, right? That anxiety, that nervous thing that we have, that you have, right, that drives you, that may be the fear of not getting the piece of business done.
Right.
Right. It sounds like it's a big part of kind of who you are today.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And but then also, in my early years, I knew there were a lot of people around me that were a lot smarter than I was. And back in New York, they were everywhere. Right? So I had to fight just in order to compete against everyone who was around me. Tell me about your fight.
My fights. Well, at the beginning of my career, being a woman who weren't smart enough, men were smart enough. So I'm sorry to say this, not a sexist comment. I had to be more of a man to survive in this business. I could not be emotional. I could not say, oh my God. It was not acceptable. I had to do more work. I had to think more, analyze more, look at the different aspects of the business. What I could bring to the table that the guy who thinks he's perfect and smarter than everybody else did not see it through. So I worked harder, and you have to, at the beginning of your career, you're going to take a lot of rejections, tremendous amount of rejections, but you have to turn that rejections into opportunities and to grow. Oh, it's giving me confirmation. So
Fearlessness in action.
So, it's there's always challenges in life, and playing the victim and just making yourself feel that I can't do it, that's where you should put that. But if you could do all of it, there's no limits for anyone, man or woman. But there were a lot of challenges. I have Brian Dunn here that I worked with, Brian, 22, 23 years. He used to do the REOs back in the days, and I was calling 24/7. I said, what do you have? Do something. And I wouldn't give up. And, that's what you have to do in business. There's no obstacle that is there, and there's not a solution to it.
Well, it's you're surrounded by, in the early parts of your career, when it was so male dominant,
Yes.
right? It was expected that, that you had to, it sounds like you put the expectation on yourself that you had to be that much better than anyone around you just to
Absolutely.
be even.
Just to catch up. Just to catch up.
Just to be able to be in the room.
Yes, just to catch up.
Would you consider yourself an entrepreneur?
Yes. I'm not a herd follower. I paved my own path. And that's what you need to do to become an entrepreneur. You have to think out of the box. You just can't go on somebody else's path because that path does not belong to you. You have to be comfortable with what path you're walking on, where you're going to go, and where you want it to go. My biggest challenges not challenges, yeah, I could say challenges, was I want to survive in a male-dominating industry. That was my mission. It wasn't about the deal. It wasn't about how much money I was going to make. I needed to prove myself that any woman from any background could make it and succeed in this business. Because it was a boys' club. It really was a boys' club. There were, back in the days, office meetings outside of the office that was networking, but because I was a woman, I was not invited because I wanted to go smoke a cigar. It was this or that, and, I wasn't part of it. So it did not bother me, but it made me grow from that. So I have two beautiful daughters. One of them is here, Ella. I always told both of my daughters, don't depend on any man. You have to be your own woman. You cannot be codependent, but you have to be independent. And that's how we have to raise our children, no matter boys or girls anymore, because gender barriers, I don't think it exists anymore, unless we let it, affect us. So it's important to have those qualities in our children.
Well, I like hearing that as a girl dad, that I make sure my daughters know that they should not be validated or feel validated
Yes.
by a man.
Yes.
Right? The validation should come from within yourself.
100%.
All right, so back to this entrepreneur thing. So thinking as an entrepreneur, I think of it as terms of being an owner, and you're a shareholder of Kidder.
Yes.
And in my career, I feel like I've never had a job. I feel like I've never worked for anybody, whether it was as a partner, a young partner in an investment banking firm in New York, whether it was in banks that I've launched. I've always been the capital behind the bank and the largest shareholder. So I've never felt like I've had a job. So that entrepreneurial thing, when I think about the banking industry, there are lots of bankers who want to bank entrepreneurs, yet they've never done anything entrepreneurial in their entire lives. So as a shareholder of Kidder, right, not just as Janet, who does all this business, do you think differently as a shareholder? Do you think differently as that entrepreneur that as a shareholder owns a piece of Kidder?
Listen, it's great to own part of the business of Kidder, but that's not what I focus on. I'm a deal junkie. I finish a deal, what's next? So I'm not there to see, if I'm profiting from what Kidder is successful or not. I just move on. I think being an entrepreneur, that would put in a section of codependency for me. And I'm not that. I'm independent. I put value in Kidder, not Kidder putting value on me. So that's how I look at life. And that's how I survived being here for so long.
Do you instill that in your team?
100%. 100%. It's important. You have to have the right team, which, again, I'm very lucky to have Angie part of my team. She puts up with a lot of ADD that I have, and I don't know how she puts up with it because I wouldn't be able to keep up with myself. But she gets it, and it's important. Research is important. Having the pulse on the market is important.
I don't know that I call it ADD. I call it organized chaos.
That's a good one.
What advice do you give to your team? What advice do you give to Angie, at her stage in her career, your stage in your career, to turn your team into whatever the absolute potential is?
I think it's experience. I think she walked the walk with me, climbed the mountains with me, dealt with the rejections that we had, the obstacles that we had, and at the end, how to overcome it. So we don't take no for an answer. We just don't. I'm persistent. She noticed, if I see a pulse on a transaction, just a little pulse, and if I hear one side says to me, maybe if that deal is going to be done. So, it's through experience. It's not being book smart or this and that. It's just experience and growing with it.
Is that what sets you apart from everybody else, or how do you differentiate?
Yes. Men and women, yes.
How do you mean?
There are a lot of people when they get rejected and they just quit and they just stop. But I don't do that. 3 a.m. email saying maybe we should strategize on doing it this way or doing it that way. I set myself apart and out of the box is to think further, not just accept it's not going to work, but analyze it, strategize it. What am I going to do next to shed the light that this investment or this transaction is a win-win situation for both? So, there's a lot of people in my office, and again, my office is all men, except we have now 3 lady agents after 35 years in my Central City office here. But I see the people around me that the deal doesn't work, they just give up. I don't do that. And at the same time, I have walked away from commissions. If I know a deal is not going to be profitable for my buyer, I will tell him, do not buy it. This deal does not make sense. Because at the end of the day, it's not about one deal, it's about 100 deals, it's about the reputation. Reputation to me is more important than any money in the world. I have given back listings because I know that it's not going to sell at a certain price, and I don't want it to hurt that listing because it's not going to be sold. So networking, relationships, and really looking out for your client's needs is the most important part. And I don't think everybody goes that far. They're there for that commission.
So having done this as long as you've done it, and the way you grew up in this industry, and what you've learned through those 35 years of experience, do you feel like new people in the business operate this same way? Or are they lacking the mentors? Are they driven and wound the same way you are? Or is it like a whole different industry today with new people coming in? You've seen cycles, you've seen the good, the bad, you've been around great people, you've been around mediocre people. How would you describe new people in the industry today?
They're not, listen, if you're talking about the barriers of women, it's much easier than when I started, that's for sure. It's tough out there for commercial real estate, no matter if you're a man or a woman. When I started this business, pagers were, oh my God, this is incredible. Fax, and now you guys know how that. Fax machine, oh my God, you could actually not go to the guy's office and just hand them the paper. This is fax, this is phenomenal, what could be next? But, now we're here, internet, websites, this and that. It's a corporate dealing. You get access to a lot of people. So your competitions have access to a lot of people. So it's rejection. It's not an easy industry, I have to say. But there is so much information at your disposal that I did not have. You didn't even have cell phones, obviously. Your phone, if you miss that call, God help you, you have to find them the next time.
Yeah, but I think that makes us better today. I'm 59, I've been doing this for a long time.
Right.
When you're talking about the fax machines, I remember the original cell phones with the huge batteries on the back. We had to work a lot harder and be a lot smarter in order to do, and today I think it's easy.
It's so much easier. Everything is on a click of a computer, anything you want to find out.
But I think that made us smarter. Right, and a different
back
work,
then,
and a different work ethics.
Yeah, work ethics is where everything starts and ends. you don't have work ethics, you're not going to make it. And I got to tell you, talking about work ethics, I'm a big believer. You could ask Jim Cruz here. I'm not an 8 to 7 or 5 p.m. kind of a broker. It's not the quantity of the hours you put in, it's the quality of the hours you put in. So don't think if you're showing up at work and I've been here since 8 and 7 and I don't have a lead. Well, you're not thinking straight. It's not, you just sit there and say, business is coming to you. You have to go for it.
It's, you and I, in getting ready for this, we talked over the weekend. And you called me, I think it was on Sunday, and you were on your way to look at property down in Orange County. And I found that to be very interesting and very telling about who you are. And this whole, I think there's this misnomer today amongst younger people, and they lead with, I want to have work-life balance, right? At 22 years old, they want to have a work-life, personal balance. And to me, that's bullshit, right? You haven't earned your right to have work-life balance yet, right? And you and I didn't start out thinking about having that balance. It was desperation to achieve.
Yes.
Right? And put food on the table and make some money.
Yes.
Right? And now it's about that as an employer, and I used to have 800 people back at Opus, and here, thank God I don't, with Genesis, but that work-life balance thing, and today post-COVID, everyone talking about, I don't think I want to go to the office. Right? I don't know. It's different now. Right? You haven't changed though.
No, I'm built this way. Or I was, I became this way. I mean, listen, if you're in your 20s, either you want to make it or you don't. If you want to make it, there's no balance of personal life and business. I have to take some time for myself. In your 20s, you got to kick ass and put your mark there. And if you don't do it by then, what's your goal? What do you want to do?
Somebody else will.
Yeah, 100%. It's life comes in for you in the 30s. You have it much easier than both of us did here. We worked harder than today. I wish I had that internet 35 years ago and not, running around buying payphones and putting a quarter to make that call. So yeah, it's in your 20s, that's the time you have to work hard. Life is secondary. Personal life is secondary. That was to me.
So you just made me twitch. I was thinking about the payphone that was across the street from, I think it was 115 Broadway, right by the World Trade Center on Broadway with the wall. And when I started my career, it was at an investment bank that was a spin-off of Bear Stearns' Financial Services Group. And I went in and I met with who's my mentor in life, who died on 9/11, Herman Sandler. And I went in and I met with him when they hit the front page of the Wall Street Journal. They were forming the firm. And I went in and he said, all right, buddy, when can you start? Now, at 59 years old, if I was Stephen back at 26, I would have answered tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Right? But back then, 26 years old, idiot Stephen, I was thinking, I said, I got some questions. Right? And it almost went sideways on me. And they said, this isn't going to work out. And I went across the street to that payphone. I don't even know what a payphone used to cost.
A quarter. I used a lot of it.
A quarter. And I begged my way back in, and I ended up starting my career, right? But we grew up with that payphone and with that light bulb hanging from a couple of wires. And what was your first apartment like here in LA?
Living in it or selling?
No. Living in it. Living in it. I want to go back to that early Janet.
Okay, well, I when I married my husband, we literally lived in a 2-bedroom, 1,100 square feet. But it was, it was great. I didn't need any more. I really didn't. All the other good stuff came later when I earned it myself. And, that apartment was more than enough. I didn't want any more. I just wanted to succeed. And, I got to tell you a personal story, guys. I was pregnant with my second daughter at a huge closing. I'm allergic to epidural. I couldn't take epidural. So I'm in labor. My doctor is there. I said, listen, how long this is going to take? There's a problem in Astro. I got the answer. He laughed and he goes, what are you talking about? I said, tell me how long. And I told my husband at that time, I said, call Helen Wong, and never forget, at Commerce Astro, and say, I call you in an hour and a half. So I delivered. They put the baby. I said, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful, give me my phone. So, that was my work ethic. So that little condo, 1,100 square feet, was more than enough. It was sufficient. I didn't need any more. And then luxury comes later. When you succeeded, you earned it yourself.
You're scaring me in that you're reminding me of how I was. And I remember we were working on like a restructuring of a bank. It was like $1 billion balance sheet restructuring. And we found out that the CFO of the bank was in the hospital. And our first thought was, we got to get in to meet with him immediately before anything goes sideways on this thing, right? Very similar. Due to your successes, you've won countless awards. What is your most coveted accolade and why?
I have to give you two. And now you guys know how old I am. One that I cherish, I got the Presidential Award from Ronald Reagan at age 16. Yeah. Believe it or not, I didn't think at that age was a big deal, so I didn't invite my parents to come and see it. After I got the award with Ronald Reagan, I'm like, oh, I should have told my mom and dad to come. That award, I truly, truly cherish. And my second award, which is present now, is Real Estate Forum Woman of Influence Hall of Fame. I guess I won so many awards that they decided I should stop, and they just put me in the Hall of Fame so somebody else could achieve the next one. So those were the two.
So what differentiates you and your team from all the others out there? Is it the scrappiness? Is it your work ethic? Is it the way you've compiled your team? What would you really attribute it to?
Being in touch with all my clients, and by talking, really, it's being in touch, forming that great relationship with them, gaining their trust, proving yourself. Integrity and ethics is the combination. It really is. On market knowledge, at a click of a button, you could give them the market knowledge. But you have to go out of your way to do more than that. Is to treat them correct and not think this is a one deal, but look long term. That's my MO in my business.
Well, you do a lot of repeat business with clients. I think that says something, right?
Don't take this personal. In the office, they call me Recycle Queen because I have literally sold same buildings 4 or 5 times. In fact, I give you a story. Jonathan Whitner is here. Thank you for sponsoring me.
Yoni.
I sold his building, 10 years ago, Jonathan. I got the listing back. I emailed him. I said, Jonathan, do you want to buy this? He starts laughing. He goes, I'm the one you sold it for me. Why would I buy my own building back? So, it's a repeat business because I gained their trust and the knowledge that I have in the industry by experience and growth.
I think repeat business with clients speaks very loudly.
Yes.
Right? To trust, to ethic, to knowledge, to relationship.
Yes.
Right? And people must like you and respect you, or they're not going to do business with you.
Absolutely not. No.
Absolutely not. They don't like you. They don't trust you.
If they don't like you, they will not do business with you.
What's the most interesting deal you completed? I know you said we weren't going to talk about cap rates. I am so tired of talking about cap rates, interest rates, where rates are going. You know, that mentor of mine who died on 9/11, he used to say if he was asked what are interest rates going to do, he'd say they're either going to go higher, lower, or remain unchanged. Right? So, but what is the most interesting deal you completed, and what's the most interesting client story?
Oh God, no. Interesting deal. Development site in Culver City. It was a 6 years escrow. I finally closed it in June. 56 million. It was very challenging, but we did it. That was the most interesting one. Another one, Jonathan Whitner was the buyer. God bless you. It was a family that I had to prove myself. I co-listed the deal with the CBREs, and I'm not going to name the big names, because they wanted to have that big name. They thought it was different. We had multiple offers. I had sold all these buildings. In fact, when I gave birth to my daughter, that was the escrow I was talking about. I sold them 2,000 units I was pregnant the whole time, in 3 months. And for years, I said, would you sell this? They said no. Would you sell this? They said no. Everybody said, give up, he's not a seller. But I didn't give up. I just stayed in tune with that specific client, met them, had lunch in San Francisco, hopped on a plane, came back. Nothing came out of it until that day that I got the call. And, from the big firm that they think makes a big difference, I was the one who sold it, and Jonathan was the buyer. He was seamless, the best client, and Joseph Chabon, you have to say. The best client. I know Jonathan right now. The best client, seamless. It was the best.
I like the Joseph City front row, best seat in the house.
Yeah, what am I gonna do?
Who and what do you rely upon to keep up with the news in the commercial real estate industry? Or who and what are your information sources?
I am constantly in touch with my clients, brokers, competition brokers, I call them all the time. Then you have Real Deal, Trader LA, all the articles. There's so much information, it's just not one thing. ICSC, I do go. I really don't go to the whole thing. I just stand outside and meet my clients and say hello. It's too much walking. But yeah, there's so much.
Could you share what organizations you've joined and would recommend to anyone starting a career in the commercial industry?
Weddings, bar mitzvahs. I get most of my. Yeah, I start partying at like 1 o'clock in the morning, but doing appetizer in the beginning, I just talk to my clients, get a deal done. Really, I'm not kidding. But, as it's every networking event that is out there. For example, this. Hopefully I'm going to get a listing where we talked about it. So it's everywhere. I constantly talk to people. It's just not one thing. Everything is just, you Google a networking event, you go there, and you have to talk. You have not to be shy.
It's really funny about the weddings and bar mitzvahs. Our oldest daughter just got married a few weeks ago up at Ojai, and I was thinking about what was actually transpiring during the wedding, the couple of nights, and I'm pretty sure some business would be getting done then over the course of the couple of nights. When you finally decide to retire, and that just sounds terrible, and I think that it would be a huge loss for the LA real estate industry, Southern California real estate industry. But when you do decide to retire, what would you like your legacy and your impact on community to reflect, both in your career and beyond?
I think my competition wanted me to retire last year, but I love the challenge, so I'm staying around a little longer. I think my legacy, should be I was part of breaking barriers and hope I made it easy for the future generation. I think that would be my legacy. I never took no. It just made me stronger every time I got rejected. So I hope I made it easier on this path for women as a whole.
When you think about that and look back on it, and you talk about the breaking down the barriers and the business you've gotten done, do you think of that as a person or as a woman? And I say that because I think Jenny, Jenny is my right hand president and chief operating officer, right? And throughout her last, how long have we been together? 8 years, 10 years, 9 years. Happy anniversary. All right. And during that, when I discovered Jenny inside of Opus, I said, you need to be the chief operating officer of the company. And Jenny said, I haven't been the chief operating officer. I said, no. You operate as the chief operating officer. You just don't have the title, right? And I said, so you now have the title. And she said, I need to think about this. I said, okay, this is on a Friday. I said, you have till Monday. And then on Monday, she said, okay, I'll be the chief operating officer and executive vice president within the company. Then in launching Genesis, I said, all right, so you've been chief operating officer, but you really need to be the president. Right? I'm going to be chairman CEO, but you need to be the president and chief operating officer. She said, I haven't been the president before. I said, all right, but you're going to be the president of Genesis. And she said, can I think about this? I said, this time, no. Right? And Jenny has always, we've always kind of led with talent and best talent and fought through based on talent, not based on male, female, or race, or it's always just been best talent. As a result of it, I've always had very diverse companies. And as a result of it, Jenny is president and chief operating officer, but she doesn't identify as being a woman or a man as a chief operating officer and CEO, or as president. She just fights like hell to build something. When you look back on your career and you talk about breaking down barriers, do you forget about how the rest of the world maybe views you? Do you view yourself as a person who has massively achieved, or as a woman who has massively achieved, or is it both?
A person. Back in the days, I didn't know, there was a barrier between men and women because that's how I was raised. But through experience and the obstacles, I learned, oh wow, there is a difference between man and woman. I make sure it doesn't exist for me. So no, as a person, all the way. Again, we can't, either as a woman or a man, can't victimize ourselves and give up on things. No, it's just a person, your performance, and your talent. I never said, oh, I'm a woman, I can't do this. No.
You're pretty awesome.
Thank
So,
you.
so I'd love to open this up for Q&A, but first, I think we should really applaud Janet. I think she is. She really stands out, and there's a lot when I look back in my career and hear you talk about it. I'm still driven by that light bulb that I had in my first apartment hanging from 2 wires from the ceiling, and it was technically it was a 1-bedroom apartment, but it was really a studio where they threw up an extra wall and just simply charged more for it. And when you open up the door to the bedroom, it actually hit the mattress, and. But you're just stellar. You're a pretty amazing person. So I'd love to open it up for questions. Do we have questions for Janet? Samir.
Great talk. So I have 2 Gen Z kids, right? So a boy and girl, right? Now my wife and my daughter. One thing that they mentioned was that actually some of the biggest barriers they get are from the other women, right? The other girls. I mean, my daughter at school and then my wife with her clients, her female clients. Before they get to the men, right? So what's been your experience? Have you found that other women have been supportive to you in your career aside from the whole gender the other gender thing.
Are you talking about business or personal?
Start business.
Business. No, actually, because we were very limited when I started in this business. So us women brokers really, although we were competition, we backed each other up. We had the highest respect because all of us were in the same box. We were trying to make a mark that it's not about gender, but it's about talent and what you could provide. Personal, yes, even to this day, unfortunately, some women cannot, they come from a different world than I am. So I have challenges in the personal spectrum because I'm different. I hope that answers your question.
Do you find it to be intimidating? Are you intimidating to other women by being so successful? And what are your challenges with that?
I mean, I've been called to be intimidated even recently in my office. Where are you, Dakota? I'm just kidding.
She called you out there.
Yeah. I don't like the word intimidating. I think I'm strong, and that shows as being intimidated. But I'm always a team player. If anybody versus personal life or business life want any or need an assistant, I'm there for them all the time. Ooh, all there. There you go. Yeah, so, no, I'm an open door in my office. Anybody needs help, I'm there.
Hey Janet, amazing talk. Thank you so much. Couple of questions. I'm hearing some murmurs and I want to get your professional opinion in the commercial space. How do you think this return to the office or not returning to office is going to impact the industry as a whole, if at all? And secondly, do you kind of see this big transfer of wealth that's generationally based coming up for the commercial space? Any insight on either of those?
Office, I going to the beginning of my work, even when before COVID, I did not come to the office 9 to 8 because I don't believe in that. But I think when you're surrounded with others, being around you and doing business, it motivates you, picks you up to do more than you would sitting at home and getting distracted. The wealth, I think although the interest rates are up, I think there's still a tremendous amount of wealth in real estate right now. I mean, it's, there's a curve right now where the sellers are here, the buyers are here. Has to be a happy medium right there, but there's a lot of wealth in the industry right now.
Hi, my name is Peter. I just have one question. You said you're a deal junkie.
Yes.
And you've been doing it for 30 years. So I know you started when you first came at like 10, roughly. Genesis Bank. We have to.
Yeah.
How do you reinvent yourself every day? Doing the same deals. You're talking about repeat business, the recycler, doing it all over again. There's got to be a way that every day you reinvent yourself to continue pushing, having that drive to do more.
When I do a deal, it's done. It's over. There's nothing. I have to see what the next one is. And do I reinvent myself? I don't know. I think about what I do next. What am I going to do today? Who am I going to call today? What am I going to say? What I'm going to ask? So every day when I wake up, Angie, I'm sorry. I go through what calls I have to make and what I have to do for that day. So every day is something new for me.
Are you driven by the money, or are you driven by the deal? I mean, I've known a lot of people in my career. I've been surrounded by people who were purely driven by the money, but they didn't love what they did. And once they made the money, they were still miserable.
Yeah, no. If you don't have passion, no matter what you do, if you don't have the passion for it, you should not be doing that. I tell my girls, do whatever you want as long as you're passionate about it, because that obstacle that you face, out of passion, you could find something to overcome it. But if you hate what you do, you are not going to make it no matter how much time you put in there. So yeah, no, it's not about the money whatsoever. It's next. I'm bored next.
Janet, thank you so much. Quick question for you. So you mentioned that, Steve as well, that now things are easier because of the internet, because of the connectivity. Philosophically though, when you were starting out, and we were starting, I think we're all kind of in the same age group, your sphere of influence was where you went physically or who you dropped the quarter to call. So it was very limited, but if you made that effort, you got to that person. Now your sphere of influence is very wide, but so is everybody else's.
Yes.
And your clients have access to data, same as you. They can do most of what you do, really. You have the 30 years or so of connections in the business and trust of the people that you work with. How do people starting out, how do they get that sphere of influence? What is their edge here in this data universe?
You know, for me, it's not about the commission that I'm going to make. It's not about, it's about relationships, networking, and again, I wasn't kidding about wedding and bar mitzvahs. I talk to everybody. You have to have the connection because, as you said, everything is at your, on your computer. You can just Google it. They really don't need me for data, demographics, and analysis on the market. But it's about the relationship. It's about the networking. Nothing else. It's about the cold call, the warm call, the hot call. That you have to do that. And it's a lot of rejections. And you're going to call me next year. I call them 364 days later. So you have to, it's networking, it's relationships in this business, nothing more. And obviously with that, you have to work with integrity, ethics, and trust.
When I say it's easier now than it was, I've only learned to become really data driven in the last handful of years. Really to rely on data because I've had enough people tell me what I call folklore. And they when in my position, I end up with surrounded by a lot of people who seem to be smart, who like to tell me what apparently they think I want to hear. Right? And I've learned that I've got to become data driven, data centric in order to know that they're actually full of it. But now looking at where I am at this point, at 59 years old, I've had that meeting before. I've seen this cycle before. I've been in that room a million times before. I've seen that deal before. It's everything seems a lot easier now. It's kind of like that athlete where the ball seems to be going a lot slower and it's a lot bigger. And that's where I say it's a lot easier today than it was when I was 26 years old. When I was 26 years old, I probably had a lot more to prove than I have now. And I was doing it for very different reasons at 26. And now, it's just fun. And people I think listen to you differently now than they did when you were, when you were in your 20s. I'll never forget the meeting. And I'll have this in my mind forever. And I still share these stories with the people around me. I was 27 years old, and Herman Sandler, 26 years old. Herman said, "I'm going to send Steven down to Louisiana because he can't screw us up in Louisiana," right? And we're going to, he's going to cut his teeth in Louisiana on banks that were troubled in Louisiana. And I remember going down there, and I was having meetings after meetings after meetings, and then all of a sudden, I'm sitting in an office. I can remember like this was yesterday, that I'm sitting across the desk from the CEO of a bank that was troubled. I mean, they really had to do something or that bank was going to die. And he had a Confederate flag on the wall back behind him above his head. And all of a sudden he looks at me and he said, "I'll be damned if some Jew boy Yankee is going to tell me how to run my business."
Oh, wow.
Right? I flew back up to New York and I said to Herman, "It's not safe for me down in Louisiana." I said, "I need to go to New England." Right? But those early experiences of flying on airplanes 4 days a week and going down to meetings back to back to back all the time, and hearing more stories and more about what was going on in the industry, what was going on in that particular bank, what was going on cyclically. It just kind of eventually, things just get easy, later, because like a cycle like what we're going through today, with interest rates flying, inverted yield curves, and maybe price adjustments happening everywhere and cracks starting to show up in the system. I've seen this a few times. The new 25-year-old kid in the business has no idea how to navigate this world right now. Right? This is all new for them. Or if they're 30, they've only seen 12. Yoni, you heard me do this at one of our you were on a panel with me a while back, and I said, we're 12 years into a 10-year cycle. Something's going to break, right? But the kid who's been doing it only for the last 10 years, this is all they've seen. They know no different. So I think our experience makes things a little easier today. If I was younger, living back in New York and had Open Table and Uber and all that stuff, man, my life in New York would have been so much cooler than it was.
Hi, Janet.
Hi.
My name's Tommy. I've known you for many years, I feel, and today I'm so impressed with how much you accomplished in your work ethics, and I knew you were always very smart, but I'm just taking down notes and learning from you, so
Thank you.
thank you. My question is, what do you delegate? I know you have Angela, she's amazing, but what do you delegate so that you have time for other things?
It's important to have the right person as your right hand. It's extremely important and vital to any business that we do. He says, like, we both sent emails at 12 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Unfortunately, a disease that I have to check mark that. So although I delegate, I'm always on top of it to make sure that was done. If not, I can't turn it off. I can't turn it off on my head. So you got to have the right people around you. If you don't, then you're still doing it yourself and micromanaging somebody else, and that takes away from everybody else. So an incredible person, your right-hand person I'm very lucky, very lucky. So I think the right team around you is going to make it.
I think that's everything.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we got to work way too hard.
Right.
And you probably wish you didn't micromanage at this stage, right?
I do.
And you don't want it. Right?
I have full trust.
And the key is having great people around you that you can just run with it.
During my long career in commercial real estate, you were always a broker that stood out from the crowd. And just to be lucky enough to be here myself, to see you is wonderful.
Hey.
My question is, are there any software applications that you recommend to brokers to follow the market that you might use on your computer screen all the time?
Janet Neman 2.0.
Software, as far as databasing, you mean? I think Reonomy has been pretty good. Expensive, very expensive. But Reonomy is more accurate one out there to get in touch with owners. We use Reonomy. Polestar, Prexy, Blueprint. They're great tools. I think everybody's
Over here.
Hi, I'm Gary Bregman, and I've been in the title business for 34 years, and I've done a lot of different things. And your comment about, or Stephen mentioned about, would you ever retire? What would you do when you retire? You seem so passionate. Why would you? And do you have any ideas if you did?
I've been working since I was 15 years old. My first job was in the bakery, Italian bakery that I stuffed myself with every cream puff I could get my hands on. So I never had a life that I wasn't working. So 40 years later, I'm still here, I'm still working. I love what I do. Love what I do. Would I retire? I think so, but not now. What would I do after it? I don't know, really get into an organization that I could help people. That's really the next step for me. I would really love to do that, which I don't have the time to do right now. So I just, make contributions and donations, and that's all I could do. But that's what I would do. Thank you.
Any more questions? Over here.
Hi, Cole from Capital Trust Escrow. Janet, thank you so much for the banter with Steven. This has been phenomenal. I'm 24 years old, Gen Zer, I'm sorry. I've only been in the business for a year. It's really new to me still. It's really fascinating to me. And as someone in your position, all this experience, growing up in a different era where you're young, the hardships are just harder and harder and harder. Whereas in my position as a Gen Zer, in my age, there are a lot of tools. And typically a lot of people would consider my generation to be the lazier generation. There's so much out there for us to use, yet we just take it for granted. What would be your advice for people my age, for those 24-year-olds, those 25-year-olds, who have the world at their fingertips, and yet they don't know where the motivation is?
Procrastination. I think with your generation, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. That's, I have two daughters. My daughter Ella, she's 25 years. She's a go-getter. But I really see from the younger generation, they just procrastinate everything. I mean, if you give me a little lead, I go with it, run with it immediately. Everything I think in your generation is, I could do it tomorrow, I'll do it next week, I didn't do it. Okay, whatever. But it's where you want to go in life. It's where you want to go in life. If there's something there, do it now. There's no tomorrow. It's today that counts. Honestly. You guys have it so much easier. So much. So I come from the Flintstone era, no technology. There's nothing. But even today, with all the information, if I get a lead, I'm after it. There's no tomorrow.
I've got a few suggestions, if you want to hear them. All right. One, pick up the phone and call somebody rather than emailing them. Right? You probably email everybody, right?
Yeah, I try to call.
Okay. How many days have you taken off in the last year?
5.
Oh.
Good.
Okay, good. And what do you want to be?
Huh?
What do you want to be? What do you ultimately want to be? Ultimately.
Ultimately, an escrow officer, hopefully, senior escrow officer, as successful as I can be.
Say it again?
As successful as I can be.
Why do you say that? Okay, so when you say as successful as you can be, like if you close your eyes and really dream big, what do you envision?
Are you talking like generally, or like do you want me to give you?
No, career. Career.
I'd like to be an escrow officer.
Who wants to be Hami?
Okay.
Thanks, Joseph. Appreciate it.
It's on his way.
All right, so you have that person around you, Hami, who you watch, you see, you see what he is, you want to be him.
Yeah.
All right, go make it happen.
I think you should follow his footsteps, really. There was a broker when I was much younger that I was like, he was always number one. I'm like, I gotta see what he does and copy it and make it my own version, to be honest. You have to have a role model. You have to ask kind of questions. Don't shy away from asking questions.
Hi, Janet.
Hi.
I really enjoyed the talk. Thank you. I'm a senior in high school, and I'm really interested in becoming a broker, so it's really insightful.
You're actually the valedictorian, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So I just had a question for you. You said you need to be there for your clients, and that most people just come in for the commission. So I was wondering how you balance adding value to your company and making sure clients get their needs met.
everything you do, you just can't have one person feeling that they didn't win, or they didn't get what they needed to get, and they were deprived of the valuation or bad taste in your mouth. So as a good broker, you have to make sure both sides feel it was a win-win situation. You just cannot take away from one and add it to the other. It has to be a balance, and that's where you become successful. I'm not there. I mean, there's been deals that I put my commission in for the deal to happen because everything got personal. But you have to forget about your benefits into this, and you have to think about your future, your reputation. You don't want to just do one deal and move on. You want to have a long-term relationships with your clients. It's very important.
Hey Janet, this is amazing. Personal question.
I can't hear
you. You're in a business that's so founded on relationships and network. How do you remember specifics? How do you, like, when you meet people at a party like this, what's your advice? Like, when you leave a party like this, you take notes. What?
I
You
can't
hear?
hear.
How do you remember everybody you meet?
How do you remember everybody you meet?
I'm good at faces, terrible in names. I gotta tell you, I get to remember that. It's important to me to know everybody.
Right.
It's a great tool. It's you can't forget someone that you did a deal with. How could you?
Right.
I worked hard. I put a lot of attention into that deal. I remember every single deal and every single client I met. It's important.
So, so I wasn't always good at that, and I think 9/11 really had an impact on me, where I lost 66 dear friends on 9/11, people I worked with, partners, kids I trained, people I traveled with, and my takeaway was a few things. One, shit happens, right? That nonsensical stuff happens, but the connectivity with people, that soulful experience really means something, and I genuinely do like people. Not everyone, but I like people, and I like getting to know people. And what I figured out is that this surface bullshit really doesn't matter, but getting deep and raw with people does. And it just seems that that when I meet people now, I try to find that little gem inside somewhere, and if I can find that, I'm going to remember that person, and I'm going to want to know that person more deeply, and really have a deeper friendship relationship with those people. It's not really about business for me, right? It as a byproduct, I might end up doing business with those people, but I'll remember.
Thank you so much, Janet and Steve. It's been really great. Just a question: if you have a favorite podcast and/or book that's inspired you throughout your career, or right now to this place.
I really truly don't have a podcast. I just don't have time to listen to them. Reading a book, I think the last one I read was 30 years ago. Honestly, but I on Instagram, I like to see the motivational quotes. It just, that gives me a sentence or two, does it for me. To be honest, I like to be around positive people. I like to be around successful people, and I ask tons of questions because I don't know everything. I'm just learning. If the day you say to yourself, "I know everything," you don't know nothing. So I ask a lot. I'm a people person. I just talk to people, hear their experiences, and learn from them. I don't think there's an amount of, I don't know. When was the last time you read a book?
Oh my God. All right, so I was always surrounded by people that were a lot smarter than I was, and I just finally a week ago put the Uber app on my phone, and Jenny will tell you also that sometime in the last 6 months, I converted 100% from my BlackBerry to an iPhone.
Oh wow!
So I'm final, and I miss it, right? And I have several generations of BlackBerries, and I'm going to embed some of them inside of like a lucite block, and have a hammer next to them so that I can break it open and use it should it ever come back. So podcasts, my experience with podcasts are that my wife listens to them and I overhear them, and some of them are interesting, some of them are, podcasts about all the Bravo programs. So I don't really listen to that. And books, I'm right there with you. I mean, I wish I had the time or made the time to read, but I would be more apt to listen to, a book on tape? But I haven't been. I'm not that interesting. Any other questions? Thank you, everybody. This has been absolutely incredible. And Janet, I have something for you. And September 13, 22, Janet Neman, Genesis Bank Institute for Entrepreneurship, Business Leadership Circle, Genesis Bank Institute for Entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
No, you're absolutely incredible, and I've really enjoyed this with you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming and supporting me. I truly appreciate it.